Hey, hi there. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do the tendril stitch because I'm making a head warmer, headband, combination neck warmer. I'm making a bunch of them for a couple reasons. One of them is I came up with a lot of stitches because I wanted to make hat brims and I wanted to make purses. So I fooled around with stitches I knew would probably work, and I made a lot of headbands and purse swatches. And so I think all these stitches are good. And I want to be able to get them out to you really fast because summer will be gone, and I mean, we'll probably want these stitches because they work so good for summer purses and for brims on summer hats. So what I'm doing is I'm making headbands with them all, and that's good because the combination ear warmer, neck warmer is really popular for people, and so I'll have a lot of Christmas gifts and things, and so yeah, I think I'll just make up a bunch and be ahead of the game. So this stitch that I'm going to show you today, I named Twisted Ripple. I just have to look at the thing. No, I named it Tendril Stitch. Sorry, it's Tendril Stitch. I'm going to do the Twisted Ripple next, but this is Tendril Stitch. And so I already had done swatches of this particular one. I ended up reusing the yarn that I used for it, and I decided I liked it the best in this yarn that I had out in the swatches I did. So that's what I'm going to use, and to tell you what yarn this is. This is a Mary Maxim yarn. It's called Aspen, and it's made in Turkey. It's 100% acrylic, but I tell you, it feels like there's wool in it, and it holds a stitch as if it had wool. It doesn't have much shine to it, but it feels like it has virgin wool in it. It's really surprising how nice they made this acrylic. The color is Lodge. So that's the color, Lodge. It's a combination of colors, and each color is mixed with white. And there's blues and greens and salmon kind of color, a bit of a turquoise, bright turquoise, some greens too. Pretty yarn. So that's what I'm going to use. And it's a bulky yarn. Okay, so put it over there. Now, get to the end of it. So I'm going to do, in my swatches, it had a tendency to slightly curl in. I don't think it needs purls though, because it's very slight. So I'm going to do an E-wrap edge with not an E-wrap edge, an owl eye edge with 2 pegs on each side. So I have marked it. I have the 2 markers here that you can see, the 2 markers here, and this is the width that I'm going to do for the ear warmer. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pegs, but you can use any amount of pegs you want, even or odd, to make this as big or small as you want. The stitch is done all on 1 peg and all in 1 row, so it's very versatile that way. You can make anything you want with it. You can have it more lacy or a very tight stitch. So there you go. And this loom is a 3/4 inch loom. It's one of the Darius looms in the circle loom set that they sell. Okay, so I just made a slip knot, and I'm just going to put it on number 1 peg. And this is going to be one of it's going to be a head warmer earband that's done as a flat panel. When I check out these stitches, I decide whether I like the look better in the flat panel or the round for what I'm going to make. So it looks better in the flat panel. I also like the flat panel because when you're doing one in the round, it's nice because you're all just doing it in the round already, but you never know for sure if it's going to fit you perfectly, because just sometimes the difference in stitch and yarn will make it bigger or smaller for you. When you're doing it this way, you can measure and get the exact length that you want, and also it's pretty versatile because you can put it's not very many stitches, so you can put a lifeline on there, take it off the loom, measure it on your head, and either take out a few stitches or add a few if you need it bigger and smaller. So it's a lot more adjustable as well. So we've got the slip knot on here, and I'm going to take the loom hook, insert it in the top of the stitch here, so it's coming out the bottom, and I'm just going to take the working yarn and scoop up a loop. I'm going to tighten it by pulling on the yarn at the back, and we're just going to go around number 2 peg with the loop, and you can make the loop quite a bit smaller. And then you're just going to take the working yarn, put it through, and snug it up. Go around the next peg, working yarn through, snug it up. And that's all there is to this. It is easy for me to see where the loops are because you have 2 nice pieces of yarn right here for when I connect them, so I'm happy enough using this. But any bind off will really, bind on will really work, as well as any bind off, because we're going to connect it anyway. And when you're doing this one, just make sure you don't get so tight you can't lift it off, but you want it snug so you're nice and tight at the edge. If you were, instead of making a headband, you were going to make a scarf or something like that with it, which is why I wanted to do this edge so it wouldn't curl, because in a headband wouldn't matter, it's nice and tight on your head, but in a scarf, if it has a curl, it's not as great. Okay, so the last loop we just put on the end peg, tighten, and then just knit it over. I just got to find what I did with my loom hook. There it is, it fell down there, and just knit it off. And that's all we have to do. And then I'd like to have a row at the base before I start the stitch, so I'm just going to do a row of owl eye. I do that quite often. If I think the edge is going to curl, I always do 2 rows of owl eye because it's more balanced to prevent the curling. I wouldn't use it if I'm using knits and purls because it's not the opposite of knit or purl. But it balances on its own if you have it in 2 rows. But I think it'll be fine in 1 row because I'm connecting it. But if you're making a scarf or something, use 2 rows of owl eye. That will balance you better. So you have an edge that doesn't curl. Okay, and I didn't really show the owl eye stitch because I have lots of videos, but I will demonstrate it right here. So you're on peg 1, you go around peg 1, over peg 2, knit it off, giving you 2 stitches. You're on peg 1 wherever your yarn is, wrap peg 1 and 2, and knit them off. But I have lots of videos with owl eye stitch in it, and so all you have to do is look on my YouTube channel. There are tons of them if you want to look at the stitch better. Okay, now we're going to go right into the stitch. So I'm just going to knit over the number 1 peg, and then I'm going to knit over the number 2 peg because we're going to be doing this number 2 peg and owl eye. We can wrap it the second time, but that's all because we're going into the next stitch. And there we go. And then I leave myself little notes. I'm working on so many stitches, I don't want to forget which one it is. And what we do now, we're on number 3 peg, we're going to start the stitch we're using, the tendril stitch. So we go behind it and do an E-wrap and knit that off. And then we're going to take the yarn and come back over the peg like this. And then we're going to do a stitch called a purl over. It was named by Theresa Higby, who is the one that created this stitch, but it's not done like a purl. It's done in a knit style. A purl, you'd have your working yarn down here and then scoop up this way. This is done the knit way. You come in from the bottom, you scoop up the yarn, but you don't knit it off. You just flip it over and tighten it. And that's how you do the purl over stitch. So we just did the purl over stitch on top of the E-wrap stitch. That's how we do this stitch. So you do an E-wrap, You come back this way, go over it to do the purl over, come in from the bottom, scoop it up, and flip it over. And I just flip it over with the, and then tighten it. You want it to be nice. You want it to be snug, but you want to be able to know you can knit it off. So check them and make sure your stitches are good for knitting off. They're not getting too tight. And then E-wrap, come back, and do the purl over on the same peg. And there you go. That's how you do the stitch. Now, you can slow down this video if you need to watch me doing this in slow motion. There's a little gear, bottom right hand corner. It just looks like a little gear symbol. When you click on it, it will bring up all these different speeds you can go. You can slow it down really slow, a little bit slow. Really helps when you really want to look at something. But I'm just going to get a little closer, slowly do it. We're just E-wrapping, knitting it off, coming back and laying the working yarn over, coming in from the bottom, scooping up the yarn, pulling out a loop and flipping it back over and tightening it up. I will always have this look with these two little bars at the side like that. What it looks like when you do a purl over. And then you'll know you're doing it right. If you do something wrong, you'll get a different stitch. If you were do it the purl way and flip it over, all that would happen is you'd move the working yarn over to the other side. You wouldn't have a stitch there. So you have to do it the knit way, even though the name is purl over. Okay, E-wrap. Come back. And knit over. E-wrap. Come back. Do purl over. And knit it over. Just flipping it. It's actually much easier to do than purling, because, or even the traditional knit, because you don't move anything, you just flip it over, and you get really good at flipping it over. It might be a little harder when you're using certain roving yarns to just flip it over like that, but you get nice and fast and you just get used to flipping it over. And I get the right tension, so I don't have to pull them unless I want to. But see, I went too far. There's my marked peg telling me I was doing a different stitch. So all I do is take it off, unwrap it until I get the loop here at the back, and I just pick up the loop, put it back on, and do the right stitch. So I'm going to do knitting over one, peg one in an owl eye fashion. Then I'm at peg one, I'm going to wrap peg 1 and 2, knit them over, and then I'm going to turn around and knit over peg, end peg, and the next peg, and then re-knit over this one, and then into the E-wrap. So we E-wrap, come back this way, and do the purl over. Scoop it up. E-wrap, come back this way, in from the bottom, scoop up the working yarn and flip it over. And next one, E-wrap, knit it off, come this way, do the purl over, next one. So that's all there is to the stitch. I'm just going to speed along doing this row, and you can watch me and slow it down if you'd like to. You can just watch me doing the stitch. Do it nice and slow so you can see what I'm doing. Now, this one doesn't want to flip over easy. There we go. And then over here, we just do a U-wrap, come back and go over both of them. Knit them over and come back again. And then this goes over in the second wrap, and I'm just going to come right in and do my U-wrap. Why not? And then come back and do the purl over. Okay, so that should be enough to let you know what we're doing. I think we can see a little bit of what's going on here with the stitch. It's a really pretty stitch. Right here is the stitch, but I'm going to go further along so that you can see it. And the sides are looking good to me. It's looking like it's going to be really good, about the right width that I wanted. But there, this is what its stitch looks like. It's coming here, here, here. This is all it right here. But I'm going to knit some more so that you can see. So I'm just going to put you on pause, and I'm going to knit a little bit ahead, and then we can take a look at it. Okay, I knit a couple more rows so you can take a look at it, and here's the stitch coming up. There, 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 there. That's what it looks like. And I'm just going to really pull it down and stretch it out so you can see what it would look like if it was more lacy. You'd have more of a look like this. With bulky weight on a 3/4 inch gauge, this is the look you get. It's fairly dense, so it would work for purses. It would work good for headbands, or you know, anything that you brims, a scarf, blanket, you name it, it would work fine. And this isn't even that bulky. If you use something like Charisma that's thicker, it would be even thicker in here, although this is thicker than a yarn like Barcelona. So it's kind of a medium bulky. And here's what your end edge looks like in this, but I'm going to join it, but I gave you a nice enough edge here if you want to go ahead and make a scarf. There you go. And I have a cast off on my YouTube that goes with this, so you can use that to bind it off if that's what you're doing. You might want to make an infinity scarf, so you'd just be making what I'm making, probably make it a bit wider, and then just keep going and connect it. It's like I'm going to connect the headband at the end. And your sides, I don't know if I can, not really very long, but there, maybe I can get this, just sort of a look like this at the sides, nice and tight. But you can certainly slip this very last peg if you want, and then just do the owl eye over the one peg there, and it would still be nice and flat like this. So there you go. I haven't had to use any purls at all to do it. I just used the E-wrap stitch with the purl over, and got an owl eye at the edges, and at the base here with the cast on, and this is what you get. No curling. So I'm going to go ahead. Doesn't take that long to do the headband, so we'll catch up when I'm close to the end and I'm ready to connect it and finish off the headband. So I'll just knit ahead and put you on pause, and we'll see you when I get there. Okay, so here I am. I've done 17 inches, which is about the right length that I need. You might want to do a little more, 17.5. I have a small head, but I do like it loose, so depending on the size of your head or whoever you're making it for, you do the right length for them. And this is what it looks like. It does look like little tendrils. And this is a fairly thick yarn, so I'm going to reduce it a bit to do this end. And if you're using a thin yarn and you've got a more lacy one, you won't need to reduce it, but important that I do. So because I'm going to be finishing it with something, I'm just going to do that, my reducing on the right side of the piece. So now normally you would want to have exactly the same stitches when you put this over, so you'd have to be actually putting up the ones that end up on the side. But we don't have to do that if we're reducing. but if you're not reducing, you're going to want to pick them all up. But I'm only going to use the 9 that are easy to come by, so I'm just going to slip them over on the second peg in, because there's 11 stitches, and I'm slipping 9 back on, and I'm just slipping the 2 at the end here. So it's these 2 loops that were the cast on that I'm slipping over. And there, we're all attached. And then I'm just going to knit those ones over. And both our sides are attached together. There we go. And then I'm just going to start reducing. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Or 11 stitches. Because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I'm just going to go to the middle stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there. There's the middle stitch. And I'm just going to move these over. I think actually because these are double like that, it's going to be easier to just knit them over first before we move them. So we'll knit 1 over on the double stitches, and that will make less bulk on the peg. The reason I'm reducing the bulk, because when we do it, if we were to do this, it's just so bulky here. And you're going to feel that on your head because you got such big pieces in here to do that. So that's why I want to reduce it on this. I want to have just 1 loop there to make it easier. Okay, I was going to do it in the middle, but it's going to be tight, so I'm just going to get stitch markers. So we'll just pause for a minute because this yarn doesn't stretch at all. Okay, and then I can just put the stitch marker to hold the stitch like that. You can use safety pins or anything that you want to. And I'm going to do that on every second one. So you can actually just put them on like this. Very easy. Just because they're so tight to move over, it'll just be easier to hold the stitches in place. And then I can use the loom hook for the one in between. But safety pins work just as well as these kind of stitch markers. Okay. So I got this one on the loom hook, and I'm just going to move this one over onto here. There we go, and then this one can come back onto here, and then this one on a stitch marker can be put on a peg, or it can be left there until later, and you can decide. But to put it on, you just kind of stretch it out till you find the loop, and then just put it on like that. It's easier for me to turn the loom around. Okay, I'm going to take off this loop, and I'm going to hold it in here, and then we can take off the one in the stitch marker. There we go. And then I'm going to put this one back on because I think it'll be easier to move this one over there. And we're just going to keep working on moving the pegs so that they're closer and closer together. And then anytime we get two on a peg, like here, we can just knit it over. And then it's going to be decreased. So, we can work on either side we want. So you just slowly do it. The other thing you can do is take it right off the loom. You don't have to do it on the loom. You can take it right off the loom and then have it all on stitch markers and just put two on each peg, however you like to do it. And then I'm just going to knit this one over. Of course, this is the end one, but I'm still going to knit it over. And I'm going to take off this stitch marker and put it back on here. And keep hold of this end so it doesn't get too loose on you. And just keep working them down. This one can now come down to here. And we can put as soon as you can move one down, you just move it down. This one will now move down here. And we can knit it off. So I'm just going to pop the stitch marker off and knit it off. And as you see, we're just going to keep moving them down till we only have about 6, well, we had 11, so 6 or 5 stitches left on here, so it's much thinner. Okay, so I'm just going to keep doing that, and we'll catch up when we have them all decreased. Okay, so I've decreased all the way down to 4, and then we're just going to do any kind of bind off that we want to do, and I'm just going to do a basic bind off. So I'm just going to knit this one over, and then I'm going to move it over to this peg, and then knit it over, and then wrap this one, and move it over to this peg, and then knit it over, wrap this one, that peg, and then move it over here, and knit it over, and then do a wrap on this peg. And then it can come off the loom. And then I'm just going to take a nice long piece. So, okay, here I've done this much, this much, this much. I just want to make sure I have enough here for what I'm going to do, but you can always attach a piece, so no biggie. And then I'm just going to go through the loop to secure it and tighten. Okay, so now we've got a thinner part here, and we're going to fold it when we finally do it in a way that's going to look attractive, something like that. But now what we're going to do is just cast this one on the loom in an E-wrap cast on. So there, just cast it on and get it nice and tight so that pull it so that you get it, the work, the piece of our work as close as here as you can. And then I'm just going to do a U-wrap over and knit it and tighten it, do another U-wrap, and I'm going to do a series of U-wraps until I get a nice long piece. Okay, so if we want to look at what we're doing, see, we're just getting a nice long kind of braided piece. This is what we're going to wrap around it. See, looks like that. We just keep tightening it And you can decide if you want to wrap it around once or you want to wrap it around twice. I'm going to take a look at the decrease and see what area do I want to cover. Well, I want to cover up. I want a couple rows because I want to, although you won't see that much, it's going to go in like that, but I want to maybe have 2 rows. So I'm almost there, but you can have as many as you want. Okay, I'm going to say that I want it just a little bit longer. And if you don't think it's long enough, you can always put it back on the loom. Okay, so then I'm going to just take it off the loom again. And I'm going to actually hold this loop. You could also put a stitch marker in it so you don't lose it. And I'm going to see if I have enough length. So if I wrap it, it's going to be about that much, and I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do is take the stitch marker out and put the yarn through to secure it. There, just like that. And then all we're going to do now, you should have this piece here because this is our starter piece. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this way. So I'm going to adjust this so it looks attractive. Maybe have a piece coming up here and then narrow down at the sides there, something like that. And then I'm just going to wrap this around a few times. There we go. And then nice and tight. I'm just going to come over here on the inside and tie these two together. And at this point I can just cut this one shorter. So I'm going to do that. And I'm just going to tie this in a nice tight knot. So that's just one knot. I'm going to do 2, but I'm just going to make sure that this is looking good here. That it's folded nice. There we go. There's what it looks like. So there it is, pretty cute. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to, I like it, so I'm going to tighten this by putting another knot in it. There we go. And then you can just take your needle and just weave it in a bit. That's all you have to do. And you're done. There you go. There's your headband. Right? You can still use it as an ear warmer, a headband, or you can still wear it as a neck warmer. You can just put the bow in the back or the front if you want, front or back, and you also have a neck warmer. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed the video. Really easy to finish it this way. And okay, until next time, bye.